Hello, welcome to this video. Thank you so much for tuning in, sharing in this now moment with myself and with one another. If you haven't seen these videos before, welcome. Welcome back. If you have, my intention is unity and oneness. I want to just go into a little flow with the guides, see what they have to share about the energies we're experiencing here in the now moment, but also in the quantum field. For those of you who haven't seen these videos before, I do just tune in to my higher guidance team, my higher self, through source energy, through my heart, and I align myself with a frequency that allows me just to kind of feel into the field, feel into the collective. Also, share some plays on words and some ways of communicating at a higher frequency, if we want to call it that. So sometimes activations can be felt within as I share this information. And as a gentle reminder, I'm not activating anyone. We are just opening to the frequencies that we all share and exchange in this field. And when we can open to those frequencies and energies, we feel things that maybe we didn't feel before, or we remember things that we have the capability of connecting into and feeling. And that's one of the things I think that's the biggest message that comes through in any of my sessions when I'm working with someone or conversations with people, is to remind everyone we've got that power of deeper connection. And sometimes it just takes listening to someone else or feeling into the words that someone else has to share, or reading an encouraging or activating story, or watching a movie, whatever it might be. And these little things click into place that help us to realize certain things, remember certain things that we didn't necessarily remember before in the same way. And that helps us to reorganize our, I'm hearing faculties. So I'm just going to go right into the word play with this. So as we play with this language, as we shift our frequency in this linguistic play, if you will, and we allow ourselves to play, as we allow ourselves to adapt with the energies that are consistently and continually coming into our never-ending, adapting reality, we begin to change how it is that we express through this medium, through this quadrant, through this portion, if you will, of reality. And we begin to open up to more portions, a bigger portion size, if you will. We begin to tune into the potions, if you will. I'm hearing love potion number 9. We begin to activate and co-create in a much broader expansibility and exchangeability that allows us to exchange with more mobility. And we've spoken of this before. Yet now is the time. For even though before we had access to these many frequencies, or we accessed these frequencies before, when we feel into them now, they may offer us a better, broader view than we may have accessed before. For we are in a doorway, if you will. We are in between spaces, one might say, within a new frequency that is at play. And we keep and continuously use the word play because I'm being called to just play with this for a moment. Play, like have fun, play a game, be more childlike, be curious. But I'm also seeing play, push the button. We can't really necessarily understand everything that's happening if we refuse to play. And I hear this a lot, like, well, I won't play that game anymore. But we're always playing some sort of game, because that's what our reality is structured around. This ability to, if we just sit in our little, I'm hearing on our cabanas, and we don't interact at all with our reality, even if we are watching television, even if we are meditating, even if we drop out of one version of reality, we are still playing in some variation with the energetics and the energies that are around us. We are the ones that are choosing what level of awareness we are playing at, essentially. So each and every one of us is making our own individual choices regarding this, by the way. And this is meant to be, I'm hearing that's meant to be that way. And so we offer word plays, but we also offer a bit more constructive, energetic stream, if you will. We invite those of you who can feel into this stream of sourced energy co-creation. For those of you who can feel into the steady stream of information, of variety of information that is pouring in through the sequencing of events that are unfolding all around us. Yet all of this is eventually leading us back to the one point of centered awareness, which is within. So we are consistently being it's being requested that we consistently, consciously interact in a co-creative way, that we become conscious of this beautiful display of reality, that we consistently and consciously display our beauty to the reality that is all around us, meaning allowing ourselves to unite in unity, in oneness from within. This allows us to resource our inner intelligence, our innate intelligence, and we begin to uprise, if you will. We begin to feel the upwelling of energy that is always available to us when we consistently, consciously, coherently co-create from that space. And there are those who are already doing this on a daily, I'm hearing a daily ritual and daily activities and daily interactions, just by being present, just by being, if you will. For this is our innate gift, if you will. There is no need to work at it yet. Many of us are feeling the need to work at it because we have consistently been in a training program, if you will. We have consistently had training wheels on, and we have consistently been operating within a projected perspective of reality based on the training we have received within a lower or mental landscape, if you will. A certain range is what we have had access to over and over again. And this training has given us the wheels that we need in order to move through that particular reality stream. And now we are inviting those who recognize the training wheels are no longer necessary. Not only that, the training wheels have become unrecognizable, for we are beginning to feel more at ease in our bodies in some cases. We are beginning to recognize that we know more, yet this can often make us feel ill at ease in our bodies. For as the training wheels come off, we are looking for boundaries. We are looking for a new set of rules to play by. We are looking for new habit patterns to increase our range. When in actuality, our range is beyond that which we can calibrate to at times, because our expansiveness goes beyond our capacity at times to fully understand how broad our capacity and energetic emergence has reached. For we are reaching out. I'm seeing a picture of someone with a blindfold on, and they're used to operating within those four walls, and I've talked about this in previous videos, and now those four walls have opened, and so it's like, well, I know it used to take me 10 steps to get here, 10 steps to get here, so on and so forth, and now we step to those 10 steps and we can keep going. Some people are still working within those 10 steps. Others are starting to explore this broader field. And when we do this, and I keep coming back to play, if we're not open to recognizing that we are, the doors have been open for us, and we continually tell ourselves, no, they're not, that's what, and so it is, so it shall be, is what I'm hearing. We are the creators of our reality more than we realize. And so this period of adaptability, this period of training with more efficiency, if you will, I'm being called to play with this, is challenging at times. All right, I'm really being called to play with this word efficient because my guides have used it a lot. And efficiency is making, I like to always look at the etymology of the word. Well, there's a whole thing on Wikipedia on efficiency, which I feel like is relevant right now. Let's talk about the etymology though. Making, producing, immediate effect, active, and effective, right? So that is the Latin or the efficient. is where it comes from. Productive and skilled. Uh, the power to accomplish something. And it has to do with power. So now I'm going to go into Wikipedia briefly and play with this. Is often measurable ability to avoid making mistakes or wasting materials, energy, efforts, money, and time while performing a task. In a more general sense, it is the ability to do things well, successfully, and without waste. So what I'm being called to play with here is a specific impulse. Okay, here we go. So we're going to get a little coded just for a second. So what my guides were sharing with me with efficiency is we have this new plane of existence that we are existing with. And let me go backwards just for a moment and expand out and zoom out. All in all, we're already united with Source. We are part of that which turns the wheels. We are part of that energetic origination, our center. We are the heart. We are the entire animation. We are the body of that which is. We are connected to and through. There is no separation. But in this realm of reality that we have chosen to exist within, called Earth, the way that I see it and the way I've been shown is there are many versions of that reality. In a collective experience, many of us have chosen to interact within, let's say, a third dimensional frequency, although we're not in necessarily that anymore. But that's where the guides are referring to. We've had our training wheels on and we've been bouncing into stuff to kind of know our location. I'm hearing here our location in space. We've listened to the stories. We've taken those stories on as our own and we've adapted within a model. I'm in flow with this. Within a model or a system that has given us the coordinates with which to act within. So the coordinates that we have been operating from within were not necessarily actual coordinates, but they were coordinates that we believed were, like Truman's story. If you haven't seen the Truman Show or the Truman Story movie, I highly encourage you to watch that. Yet, so I'm just going to go with that dimensional kind of play here. So for many of us, we've chosen to work through this in increments. And we've chosen to come here on Earth and to play with time or utilize time to play within this reality. And while some people are going through very difficult moments, these moments are also full of opportunities to really connect with at a human level, to connect in this human existence. Oh boy, I have so many areas I want to go into here. We're having an opportunity to reconnect with love, with the currency of value, of true value, which is appreciation, gratitude. And we're going through things such as the release or understanding of regret or feeling abandoned. And we're coming back into a recognition. So I'm going to give a for instance on the abandonment situation. A lot of people felt abandoned as children. I felt that way growing up. And then we're given an opportunity sometimes in relationship to meet a partner who doesn't abandon you, but we still carry with us these feelings of being abandoned or not feeling worthy. That must be why I was abandoned as a child. Whatever it might be, this is why my partner left me and this next partner is going to leave me too. I'm using that as a for instance. These are things we're being given an opportunity to reassess, to say that no longer fits. That box that I have been operating in of the abandonment box, where these are my parameters for what I'm allowed to believe or what I should or shouldn't feel is right or whatever it might be, have now opened. So it's scary when we've been in a pattern that's been attached for so long to a particular reality. And I'm just trying to stay simple here because I could go galactic on a quantum level. I already introduced that at the beginning, that we are already one and in oneness. But that's not why we came here to have this experience from my perspective. And Many of us came here to have this experience for a myriad of reasons, not just for one reason. But having said that, let's talk about efficiency. So now we're being given an opportunity, because that wasn't a waste of energy per se, but now operating within that, I'm not going to call it a waste, but it isn't the most efficient. So what the guides are saying is, guess what? You can be more efficient now. Can you let that go? Can you drop that old system and step into this new plane of existence that has more available? And it's easier than we think. That's another play on words, because if we overthink it, it makes things more complicated. I'm going to pause for a moment. Okay. So I tend to go with synchronicity to understand my environment, and that's my kind of cup of tea that I use as my way to share with everyone. If I'm working with someone, I love to adapt that as one of the tools we can use for our toolbox. So I'm guided to talk about specific impulse. So let me go back to where I found this, and so bear with me because this has a bigger ooh. Okay, this is relevant. So here we go. Did I pause this? No. So I'm going to just keep reading here and share the synchronicity. A common but confusing way of distinguishing between efficiency and effectiveness is the saying, efficiency is doing things right, while effectiveness is doing the right things. The saying indirectly emphasizes that the selection of objectives of a production process is just as important as the quality of that process. Oh. This saying, popular in business, however, obscures the more common sense of effectiveness. So it says efficiency is doing things right, effectiveness is getting things done. I want to kind of clear all that out and just play with this for a moment. So they're saying that you can be effective, okay, through inefficient processes, or you can be effective through efficiency. So if it costs less and it takes less energy to do it and you still get the job done, it's effective. Or it could cost more, okay, and it could take more energy, but it still could get the job done. So the guides are basically saying, which would we prefer at this stage? Obviously, most of us want to be more efficient. We want to be able to use all of our resources. But we've been in the habit, what I'm being shown is burning rubber. We've been in the habit of spinning our wheels sometimes. So this comes back to the parentheses video that I shared recently. Holding that space of coherence consistently, which just means being in a center of space of awareness, will help us work with more efficiency and still be effective. And we're learning how to do that a bit. We're learning how to adapt to these new energies that are assisting us. We're not necessarily having to work as hard or in the same way to achieve the same results. Because from a bigger perspective, we're not trying to achieve the same results. We're just creating in a more effective way by interacting with reality in a different way, from a higher perspective, from a higher frequency, from a higher range of energy. And sometimes there is a kind of an in-between, a wobble, if you will, while we find our footing. And that's essentially what I'm being shown is happening for a lot of people. I want to go into specific impulse from there. So it says that in some cases, efficiency can be indirectly quantified with a non-percentage value, such as a specific impulse. Now, this is relevant too, because as within, so without. As we learn to operate from this, our advancements reflect that. So we become more sustainable because we start to create from another, I'm hearing, a different quantification. We create from a different frequency, less mind-based and more energetically constructive. And this means less waste. That's a play on words. So a specific impulse is a measure of how efficiently a reaction mass engine, such as rocket using propellant, generates thrust. Now this is a key word. Ooh, I can totally play with this for a moment. So this was a channeling that I did a while back, and I never went into the impulse because this is a lot of double meanings, triple meanings, quadruple meanings. So one of the other messages that's coming in is not being impulsive. There's a fine line, and it kind of goes in with being effective and I guess just dropped into a whole other flow here. Effectiveness versus efficiency, right? Reaction, right? We can be reactive, or we can take action from a place of balance and harmony, which is less reactive, yet more efficient. So there's many different ways of looking at this. Now, if we are operating on an impulse, because we are centered and we have a synchronicity or we have intuition come in while we're holding the space in the parentheses, while we're allowing ourselves to kind of observe our environment, observe and feel our emotions in attachment to what we're creating, what we want, what we don't want, all of those things. It's what I'm hearing is it's in real time. There's a lag time sometimes while we're figuring that out, while we're learning how to operate within these new parameters. But once we find our coordinates and we realize that our coordinates are constantly shifting and adapting to meet us, to meet our range of motion, to meet our broadband expansive abilities, for us to open to a different architecture unfolding around us. Sorry, I'm using a lot of crazy words, I know, but just feel into this. This allows us to respond. It's like a living response. Our environment is responding to us. It's that lucid dream. And all of a sudden, we begin to interact with people, places, and things in such a coherent, lucid exchange that the rate of exchange is equal. And I'm hearing opportunistic. That's a play on words. We have more opportunities, that's a tuning fork, to align with those energies that are cohesive to our coherence, that are lining up with our frequency set. And this allows us to set the tone, set the scale, the harmonic equilibrium. It allows us to be in a more equal, the scales become more centered, and we're less, whoa, the wobble decreases a bit, and it will shift according, I'm seeing a hoverboard, to how, again, consistently we can hold that pattern. So that's all a play on words, and I'm being called to play with this whole, the thrust. Ooh, that is so cool. Boy, oh boy. I'm on Wikipedia right now, and it's talking about reaction force. So my guides are saying this has more to do with how much power we hold as we go into the field, meaning our reality. How much power we hold to carry us into the next stage, if we want to call it that, although theoretically we're not going anywhere because everything is happening now in time, blah, blah, blah. But for the purpose of this video, how much power we're taking with us, right? And thrust is talking about the accelerated mass in one direction. When a system expels or accelerates mass in one direction, the accelerated mass will cause a force of equal magnitude but opposite direction to be applied to that system. The force applied on a surface, my pineal gland is So what they're showing me is this is respective to time. This has to do with time. There's called thrust to power, which is the power needed to generate thrust, and the force of the thrust can be related in a non-linear way. So basically what they're telling me is this has to do with how we interact with time, because we're hearing a lot about time is speeding up, and I don't know if you guys have been feeling it, right? But time does not seem to operate within the same way that it used to, because it doesn't, because we're not operating with our reality in the same way. And they're talking about, wow. Okay, just nerd out with me just for a few more minutes, and then I'm going to go back into flow. But this led me into looking at moment. So, moment, ironically, I did not know this. And this is where being curious can be really fun to help us explore our reality. And I'm exploring this in this way because it's fun for me and I use it as a synchronistic flow. I'm not obviously a mathematician or a scientist, but from my perspective, the ideas and concepts that come through, we're going through this mass awakening to more. So the more we, and I'm being called to just play with that a little bit. We don't have to have a degree in these fields to read the field. The field is accessible and available to us all in our own way. Doesn't mean that we're going to necessarily be an inventor or we're going to, work on thermodynamics or whatever it might be. But we can still utilize the language of this that's in the field to help us to understand our experience a little bit more and to adapt to a new type of language and communication. And all of this talk, I'm going to go off on a tangent here of the Akash and the Akashic records and all of this. We have access to all of this in our own way. Those walls, those parameters with which we operated in before have shifted. So we can either hang on to the old programs that gave us the coordinates that are no longer accurate. They're still usable because there are remnants that are still put together of that reality, but they're not 100% accurate anymore. So why not expand out our coordinates to go broader so we can start to interpret our environment from a higher vantage point? We start to let go of the need to, I'm hearing isolate ourselves, okay? We have this idea that this is specialized and this is specialized, but we really need to be looking at the whole body of everything, of our environment, of reality. And essentially, isolate is to set or place apart, to stand alone, to detach. So this also has to do with, this is a little deeper, but I'm hearing isolate. So ISO, ISO. Okay. So we become more in tune with all of the space around us and not just one portion, although we could still focus on that. Okay, so I was called to continue on this whole theme of isolated. So the guides were kind of asking me to go into, I said the word thermodynamics, not realizing that it was all connected. Hello, what am I talking about? Everything being connected. And essentially, the thermodynamics system, if I look that up, comes from looking up an isolated system. And what I was saying was, we're become less isolated. Well, what does that mean in an energetic or quantum space? Well, obviously, from one version of the meaning of that, it's like, and I'm going to repeat this, we're less of the hermit, right? We're more interactive. Everything becomes more interactive. We are not necessarily just within ourselves, in this box. So, now, a physical system so far removed from other systems it does not interact with them. That's an isolated system. A thermodynamic system can be both. So if I look up thermodynamic system, is a body of matter and or radiation separate from its surroundings, but it can be used using the law of thermodynamics. But what I wanted to go into is isolated, a closed or an open system. What my guides are basically showing me is exactly what I've been talking about. So maybe I should share screen, but it's showing a boundary, and I was using the word boundaries. So, oh, stand down. I've got to get a new captain's microphone. I've got to find one that I like. Okay, so let's play with this. Closed system or an open system. An isolated system does not exchange matter with its surroundings. So, or energy. Oh boy, I'm going to play with this and go a little deeper down the rabbit hole. So, basically what they're showing me is that we become more open, right? And we are then able to interact with the surroundings by exchanging matter and energy. So to come back, bring it back in, Carrie. Way over my head on some of this stuff, but the synchronicity around this is we are creating this thrust or this energy. This has to do with thermodynamics as a human, as a collective of human, on a quantum level, but also on a very physical scale with how we're interacting with reality and how we're co-creating reality. And so essentially the message is let's get back into a place of efficiency with the highest efficiency versus just like being affecting something. And this also has to do with cause and effect, which has to do with our relationship with reality. And what was interesting in reference to coming back to thrust, we're talking about going from point A to point B, how effectively and efficiently we're getting there. This also has to do with moments. So I didn't realize this, but what I've always been hearing is moment to moment, right? So in this moment, we are moving with a conscious co-creative factor. This is a play on words. A moment is a mathematical expression involving the product of a distance and a quantity, such as a physical force, magnetic force, electric charge, or a velocity. So it's talking about fixed reference points, and they refer to physical quantities located some distance from the reference points. So the guides are kind of playing with this and saying, all right, our moments are becoming longer, time speeding up, but the space in which we are holding this energy is longer, if that makes sense. So we're able to interact with it. So I'm hearing it's a phase lock. I guess I'll go into that too. Okay. So maybe I should just go into flow and come back and rewrite this and share what I always say that and then I run out of time to do that. But not if my moments are getting longer. So essentially our moments we are expanding our field. So how we interact with that field that we are interacting with, let's say it's a landscape and all of a sudden we had this much to play in our sandbox, our landscape, and now we have this much to play in, right? With no boundaries. We're merging with those boundaries. So we become more interactive. It becomes less of I'm being shown the old video games, right, versus the new video games. Think about how different they are and how much more interactive they are than they were back in the days of the Mario Brothers, or even older than that, some of the older ones. Galactica, anyways. So the moment. So that's when we're talking about thermodynamics. But we could also look at this and play with moment because I think it's very valuable right now. And we'll come back to this. I lost my moment. It's also a mathematical expression. In mathematics, it's a function that certain quantitative measurements related to the shape of the function's graph. If the function, represents mass density, then the 0th moment is the total mass. The first moment is the center of mass, and the second moment is the moment of inertia. So it's all of this. Basically, what my guides are saying is, number one, none of this is separate from each other. The mathematics is not separate from the physics, and the physics are not separate from the mathematics. They all work together. We just have a different variation of the meaning of the words. And those meaning of the words can be adjusted moment to moment in that measurement of what we are equalizing to, what we are lining up with, how it is that we are reprogramming our connection with reality, and how much thrust and energy we have to move into this new reality from a very expansive, interactive, new patterning that is happening at a quantum scale, but is also happening at a mass scale. So it's micro to macro, right? This has to do with electrical charge. This has to do with spherical harmonics. I'm hearing it has everything to do with spherical harmonics. So, boy, I thought I was going to keep this simple star seeds, but I kind of went into a little mad scientist, not really mad scientist flow, more mad hatter flow. So, if you guys are still following what I'm putting down, everything is connected. And so to keep it simple, we're being called not to compartmentalize everything. We're being called to not isolate ourselves, right? To move back into that space of recognizing rather than a closed system, we become an open system. Now, that's not literal. That's not, well, maybe it is literal. I don't know. But we're interacting with our environment. It's like everything is alive, is basically what I'm being shown. There's not the separation. We're feeling this deep interconnectedness that's interwoven in all of our interactions, in all of our conversations, in all of our meditations, in all of our movements. And so this new phase, I'm being called to come back into phase lock. Maybe it has to do with conjugation. I'm sure that has to do with something that Dan Winter just talked about. It allows us to essentially link up with this different resolution in time. And that's all the play on words as well. So it allows us to harmonize and allow for more coherence. And that's even a very basic word of what they're showing me. All right, guys, I'm just going to keep going in this rabbit hole. And then I'll keep it simple, and then I'll go down the rabbit hole. So my guides are like, look it up. So I looked up phase locked, and the only thing that comes up is phase locked loop. Now, when I look at phase locked loop, I understand part of what they're showing me, but it also has to do with time. Time mechanics is what I'm hearing. So the phase locked loop is a control system that generates an output signal whose phase is fixed relative to the phase of an input signal. Now, keep that simple. What we put out is what we're getting back. Law of attraction, right? We could simplify it that way. But because we're in a phase where how we are creating and opening these locks, and I'm playing with these words, this is not exact science, this is just Carrie variation of explaining all of this. It's creating a new equilibrium scale. I'm hearing scale tectonics. Now, all right, here we go. So that's a thing. So when I look up phase lock tectonics, it leads me into the trigger event defines the point in time at which a repeating window of waveform information is stabilized for viewing. I am being called to read this. So what I was led to is a website. I looked up scale tectonic and then phase locked came up. So being that I was just in phase locked, I'm tuning into it here. I'm following this through my own rabbit hole synchronicity. If I click onto this, it's a triggering fundamentals. Now, the reason I'm being called to look up triggering, that's what I was drawn to, is because I was talking earlier about reaction time. We're not being triggered. I didn't say triggered. I said reacting. So this is a play on words. I'm recognizing. So many of us are not reacting to things. We're not triggered by certain things because we're in a phase of coherence, which is at heart math they call it heart coherence. You heart lock with someone. So essentially you're locked in, but not literally. You're just holding that pattern, which creates this, I'm hearing, higher rate of absorption and then a higher state of flow, which would obviously provide torque or momentum. And this is how this has something to do with time. So if I go into triggering fundamentals, because that's what I was called to look at, my eyes immediately go into the trigger event. So it's and tectronics. So the trigger event defines the point in time at which a repeating window of waveform information is stabilized for viewing. Imagine you are taking a trip in your car. You need to arrive at your destination in the minimum amount of time. Now we're going back to efficiency. But you want to photograph a particular landmark along the way. You know you can get to your destination quickly because you have a very fast car. But what's your strategy for capturing the point of interest on film? One choice would be to randomly snap pictures on your camera as you drive and hope to capture an image of the landmark. Obviously, this leaves a lot to chance. A more logical approach would be to give the driver instructions on where to stop so you can get a good, clean picture of your point of interest. Waveform data in many oscilloscope applications is like all that scenery you don't care about. In a high-speed debug application, your circuit may be working 99.99% of the time, or commonly even more. It is the 0.001 of the time that is causing your system to crash, or is the portion of the waveform you need to analyze in more detail that's relevant. Your oscilloscope may have the banner specifications, bandwidth, to make the trip quickly, but if you cannot capture the data of interest, it will be a limited debug and analysis tool. I don't know if anybody else is following, like read between the lines on that. So at a level, it's like we're debugging, we're defragging, we've been purging, right? We've been clearing all that out. And now we're allowing ourselves, because our bandwidth, we have this new increase of space, if you will, a new ability to recalibrate at a faster rate. So our environment is also doing that in response to us, our waveform. So we're able to slow things down from one perspective while things are speeding up around us. But because we're holding that coherence, we're able to see things as they are. Not necessarily in the rear view and not necessarily in the future, although we can see that too. So it's almost like we're seeing things from this multi-dimensional view. And I'm hearing snaps, snap, 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 and that's plan words as well. Okay, before I lose that train of thought though, by the way, I'm on download.tech.com. If you Google Tektronics, Tektronics, which I did not know was a thing. I've written about this before. I'll have to go back and check that out. Okay, so for those of you who are electrical engineers, you'll know what this is. I am not, obviously, but in electrical engineering, a snap switch, I think this is also plan words. There's something else I think it has to do with computer programming, so I'm going to look that up next. But in electrical engineering, a snap switch is manually operated switch that quickly changes from an open to a closed state when a small amount of force is applied to its actuator. But basically, it says it can close or open an electrical circuit at rapid speed, triggered by an external force, either human or physical object. It requires very little pressure to operate. So plan words, I have a feeling this is applicable to something else that I'm not sure on a more quantum or macro scale, but on the human scale, I see this as our energy. We're able to take these snapshots, our aperture shifts. Not only that, we open, we close, we open, we close. We're not necessarily, we can do it quickly and make these adjustments in real time. Within what are those adjustments, Carrie? To our environment, to seeing what somebody's going through, to seeing having something come up as far as synchronicity, we can open it and we can close it and direct our energy more efficiently to what it is that we want to focus on. Or we can be completely open, allowing all those things to I have a picture that's coming into my mind's eye. And it was years ago when I had this Kundalini awakening that kind of started me on this journey. I was inside of the tornado. I had literally, there was this tornado that came down in this vision that I had in meditation, and it was basically like an out of body experience. And I had been climbing up this inside of this web like tornado, and inside of it, there was like, it was like Wizard of Oz, right? There was a cow, there was a house, there was not a whole house, but pieces of wood, and there were all these things that were stuck in the cotton candy or fascia or the web of this energy, where I was able to stop it and just pause it. I could see all of the things that were stuck in the spin. And then in addition to that, I had in my vision gone through this portal and seen infinite numbers of portals with infinite numbers of places and spaces in reality. So that is, in essence, we're pausing it. We're able to see things and make adjustments so quickly that we then open to the next thing, and these electrical conduits that we are, starts flowing more rapidly, which again, I'm being called to go back to thrust. It produces a more stable equilibrium, and we become less wobbly, which I was talking about in the beginning there. The other thing I think is relevant about this is I was called to look up the tectronics. So now I'm on tech.com, basically tectronics, Tektronics. And it's talking again about phase locked loop operations that include both linear and nonlinear. So we get a little bit of both, right? Everything is really nonlinear, but we're used to operating within a linear time. I just said real time, and it says, it also shows measurements of these effects in both the time and frequency domains using Tektronix real-time spectrum analyzers. So I was curious about this, and it talks about Tektronix real-time spectrum analyzers have the abilities to trigger on transient signals in either the time or frequency domain to capture a seamless time record of the signal and to analyze the captured signal in the frequency, time, modulation, and code domains. This ability to operate across multiple domains make Tektronix real-time spectrum analyzers the ideal instruments to measure both linear and nonlinear performance of phase-locked loops. Now, I'm sure this has many other meanings than what I'm tuning into, but the way that I interpret that, to keep it simple, even though this isn't simple, is we are that, okay? We are working within a new domain. We're holding a new spectrum. We're holding a new vocabulary. Can we sustain this new domain? Our ability to operate within this domain and within time, okay, recodes how we operate within this domain and how we operate with time. Therefore, our relationship, which to me is the coordinates, is what I'm saying. How we coordinate, how we line up with these coordinates also will shift accordingly. Play on words. So this is saying, and by the way, I don't know anything about Tektronix, so I'm not sure if it's a good or sounds good, but I'm not here promoting anything. But essentially, it's capturing a seamless time record of the signal. Now, this comes back to what my guides have been talking about. We're sending out this signal. We're sending out this signal, and that signal comes back to us and then categorizes how we operate within that confluence of energy or within that frequency, modulation, and code domain. So this brings a whole new awareness to how we're interacting with our reality as walking electrical capacitors, right? And it talks about phase-locked loops, but there's probably more about that I'm just not understanding. But my definition of that is it's a new, we're redefining how this actually works and how we operate within it. In addition to that, I'm hearing it changes our choice points. It changes our strategy and how we strategize. Coming back to those parentheses that I shared in my previous video, I invite you to go back and check that out if you're still hanging on at this point. It changes how we interact and modulate our frequency performance, giving us an enhanced mobility and moving in a different trajectory and platform of grand design schematics. This shifts how we assess what we are co-creating. And in those real moment assessments, we level up at a higher quantum, I always say quantum scaling effect, but I'll come back to that, a higher availability of resource codes. So we're able to interact and map into this much more efficiently, requiring less energy once we find our stability to create a cohesive pattern. Right now, we might be all over the place. What I'm also being shown is we've kind of been held within this framework to help us to be able to organize in this way within a linear time operation, almost as if now is the time, in part because of, I'm hearing, our solar influctuations, but also where we are on a grand scale. So that's macro, right? A cosmic scale. That's also lining up to assist us. So we're all part of this body of unification, but the way in which we've chosen to operate in this reality, this is kind of how this is how we do it. We're recoding our reality, if you will. Okay, I could probably spend another hour just on this one website. Okay, I'm going to leave these open, screenshot it, and then come back and do another video on this for those of you who want to further nerd out. So I'm going to end on that note. There's so much happening on such a broad scale, and so to simplify it, right, to kind of try to pull this all back in, we are conductors. We are conducting how it is that and I'm hearing conducting oscillators, right? So I'll just go into flow. All right. So we are interpreting our environment, and we allow ourselves to sit within this new space of co-creation. We are able to oscillate within a new frequency, and rather than moving in high and lows, we begin to screenshot, if you will, they're playing with my screenshot, if you will, new templates of design, and we can see them in real time. We begin to move into that with a more vivid and are able to replicate new source points, if you will, on the scale and harmonize with those source points. Those energetic convergences that we then merge with give us access to different codes and scales that would have been unnoticed before, that would have gone unnoticed before, because now we notice more. And while this at times can create an unequal, I'm hearing bilateral exchange, we are working on moving up the efforts, if you will. We are working on restoring an equilibrium that has never been seen before. In essence, play on words, with never been seen before in essence, like it carries a new signature, it carries a new essence. And so as we open to more, as we work with what is available to us, we are here holding, I'm hearing an isotope, a new configuration that is available in this quantum collaboration. And we begin to reorganize our harmonics in such a way that we carry forward in this new time period an ability to organize at a high scale that allows us to move up the scale in a much more fluid, I'm hearing, and thermodynamic wave. Our ability to access these units of information held within compact, I'm hearing like diaphragmatic, play on words, places and spaces in time now become unified with fine eyes to see, play on words. We begin to, I'm seeing ice or snow when it freezes in all these beautiful forms. It's fractal. And I'm seeing, pretend that's the fascia and the mycelium, and that is connecting. Like we are the synapses firing, 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 firing. And it's essentially creating this web of energetics that are unseen to the human eye, but we can see it with eyes to see because we feel from this parentheses, this ability to see and co-create in a much more, I'm hearing judicial way. So that's a play on words, judicial. And then I'm going to end on that, maybe. So I know that this is not exact, but fitting, proper. I'm hearing, so it has to do with just, conforming to standards or rules, but they're new rules and they're new standards that are higher. There's something about this. Right-minded, good in intention, having correct dimensions. That was it right there. So we begin to change this in a much, we now have the correct dimensions with which to exist within and the coordinates that were not something we felt we had before or we thought we had. And so I'm just being called to just really play with this. And I've been called to share this in this way because it's somehow very activating for some people. And also it's fun to play with. Other people are just going to be like, what the heck are you talking about? But if you've made it this far, congratulations. Gold star for you. Thank you so much for tuning in, you guys, and just playing with me on this journey. This is really a very expansive time. It is so, there's so much going on that we can get lost in the shuffle sometimes. I can get lost down these rabbit holes, learning how to change how we communicate. But the force field, may the force be with you, that we are creating is so big. Do not allow our full spectrum realization to be distorted by the old distortions, contortions, and coordinates. Those are part of an old system that was useful for whatever reason, for when it was, and it no longer is. So what's happening is that box that I keep saying has come apart is still there. But so is so much more than that. We are not, I'm hearing confounded, play on words. We are not confined to just that arena, just that scale, just that way of being. There is so much more than meets the eye. And again, I'm hearing eye of the beholder. And what does show up for us that we see with our cones and our projectors and how we see is based on the eye of the beholder. And I'm hearing, behold, have I not told you, year all? Anyways, having said that, it is based on what we're able to hold in our own spectrum. Can we see more? And if we choose to only see what was, and we choose to map our coordinates based on those coordinates, though that's all we're going to see. And there are those who have chosen to only see with their they've phase locked into that. They want to stay in that phase, right? That's where they are. We might be in a different phase of development. And I'm seeing those of us are looking out of our periphery. But we're not just looking out of our periphery, we're seeing above, below, behind, sideways, all of the areas that maybe were not as easily seen before. So, in love and light, guys. Have fun co-creating. Namaste.